Okay, great. Okay, so the class we're in today is called The Fortunes in the Follow-Up, Predictable Lead Generation and Lead Follow-Up Plans. I'd say the operative word here is predictable. My goal is to help you create some systems and tools that you can then use in your business that become predictable, okay? So getting started with that, I'd like to ask you guys, why are you here today? So this is your chance to unmute and then tell me one thing. I'm going to stop sharing. I want to see all of you. Tell me why you're here today and what you're hoping to learn. Let's get a few people to share, please.
I'll share.
Great.
This is Yvette. So I'm here today because this is probably, you know, we all know, you should know your strengths, you should know your weakness. This is actually one of my weaknesses. And it has happened because I put more things on my plate. So I'm trying to do a variety of things now. And all of a sudden, this has become a weakness. Whereas in my first couple of years, it wasn't. But the more things I have on my plate, the more things fall through. So I need to improve my follow-up.
Okay, awesome. So maybe it's just adding some systems
Yeah.
in place to help with that. Okay, thank you. Who else?
Hi,
For
this
me-
is Rosemary.
Hi,
I
Rosemary.
tend to have plenty of leads from my open houses. I just don't have any responses. I send them emails, they won't connect. I'll text them, they won't connect, but they've given me the impression they're very interested or they want to see more houses. I'll send them information on getting a loan. I get nothing in response. I don't know quite what to do. How to
Awesome.
get them to make the offer, how to get them to work with me more.
Okay,
Thank you.
awesome. Yeah, thank you. We're definitely going to talk about that kind of stuff. So that's great. What else?
This is Angelica. For me, it's more my follow-up. I feel like if I have good systems in place, I will be able to finally get all those clients that I'm missing out on and just mastering those systems.
Okay, awesome. We got some lead generation things in here, some lead follow-up, some conversion. What Rosemary is talking about is conversion. Kiko, you raising your hand?
Yeah, I think for me, a little bit of mindset. If I get what I perceive to be a no, even though they're not saying no, then I just shrink back. So I think if I can systematize it, that'll help with that psychology.
Okay. That's awesome too. And darn it, that's one thing I don't have drawn that I'm gonna have to try to get you to draw it with me and picture it, because I'm not gonna be able to draw one thing around what Kiko just said. So, okay, anything else? Mindset, that's what you said. Anything else? We're going to cover all of those things today. And so moving back to my presentation slides, you have a better understanding of why you're here today. Okay. You know, the goal in real estate is to make some money. This is not a charity job. Our goal here is to fund the perfect life. And so the thing about it is, and the reason why this class or this topic is so important is I'm going to bring this down to the level of the day in, day out, what is required in real estate. It's frankly the day in, day out job description. It's not super sexy and it's actually super easy. And I believe that most of the time it's so easy that we think it's got to be harder than that. Okay. And so it's really about creating some lead gen systems and some lead follow-up systems that you do day in and day out so that they build upon themselves, which will then in turn help you with your bigger goals. And I'm sure that many of your goals have something to do with finances. Okay. So we're going to really talk about the daily stuff that needs to get done that creates those building blocks. Gary Keller talks all the time, and he especially talks about in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, that we all have two jobs. Do you guys remember what those two jobs are? Lead generation and everything else. We have our one job, it is lead generation. If we're not doing lead generation, the rest of it doesn't matter. So we have 2 jobs in any sales description. It's lead generation, and the second is everything else. So in order to move through this, I want to start with mindset, a bit about what Kiko talked about. And so I'm going to challenge you to think about moving from entrepreneurial to purposeful. This is one of our 6 personal perspectives that we teach on at Keller Williams. And again, that perspective is moving from entrepreneurial to purposeful. When you hear that term, and we call it moving from E to P, what does that mean to you? What does entrepreneurial mean? Do you guys all feel that you're entrepreneurial?
Yeah, so for me, I think it means that this is Yvette speaking. It means that I'm moving from, I have to rethink that, sorry. I was thinking of myself as an entrepreneur, I drive things, but also I know as an entrepreneur, I can have a million things on my plate and I'm going in a million different directions, and after a while you feel like you're not being purposeful. So I feel like I need to have systems in place to,
Right.
have success.
And we attract the entrepreneurial spirit to real estate because you get to be in your own business, be your own boss, set your own schedule, all those things that people who are entrepreneurial in spirit are attracted to. And yet, in order for us to move through these ceilings of achievement and break through to higher levels of achievement, we can't just be entrepreneurial all day. We need to move from that entrepreneurial spirit that gets you out of bed and gets you excited every day to what are you going to do with your day that's going to be purposeful to help you move to a higher level, whatever that higher level is for you. So moving from E to P means moving, and if you think about in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, it talks about models and systems before creativity. Okay, that we need to have a solid foundation of what we're doing. And once we've got that solid foundation, we can sprinkle some creativity on top. So when you think about being a learner in this class and having some takeaways, I want you to think about where you're at now, what ceilings are you hitting, and what do we do? What do you need to do, or what do we need to do to move you through those ceilings so that you're having some breakthroughs? That's moving from entrepreneurial to purposeful. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, the other thing in terms of mindset that I want to remind you is, how are you showing up today? There's a bold law. How you show up here is how you show up everywhere. So bold is one of the classes that we teach, and one of the bold laws is how you show up here is how you show up everywhere. So what type of student are you? Are you an A student? Are you a C student? C is actually average. So I would really encourage all of you guys today to show up as an A student, and what are you going to take out of this class, and what are you going to do with it afterwards? Okay. You see my little part over here on the right talks about the triangle that's shared, the creativity or triangle that's shared in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. If you start with models on the bottom and sprinkle some creativity on top, you have more of a stable plan. And if you do it the other way, because you think it can't be this easy, can't be this boring, it can't be this simple. And so you start with creativity and then you try to throw some models on top of it. Your triangle's upside down and you're going to be unstable. So today is all about starting with stable foundation. It's that foundation of lead generation, and then lead follow-up, and then lead conversion. And it sounds like for all of you guys, all those things come up in your business. We're going to start there and move through. And I really do think I love teaching on this topic. It's one of my favorite topics to teach on. I think you're going to walk away today with some clarity that's going to help you move forward. Okay, so I'm going to move into some content now. Are there any questions or thoughts before I move on?
Nothing in chat.
Nope.
Okay, thank you for checking. I appreciate it. All right, let's start out with some basics. We're going to define what a database is. We're going to define what lead generation is, and we're going to define what lead follow-up is. Okay. We talk in real estate or in sales, it's not just a real estate term, all the time about the database. What's your definition of a database? What is a database?
It's my lifeline.
Oh, I love that. It's your lifeline. I like the term data bank too. It's another great term. What does that mean, Kenny, that it's your lifeline?
They always say that your network is your net worth. So very much in the same line as we.
Write that down. Your network is your net worth, your data bank. So who's in your database then, Kenny?
Everyone that I can think of.
Yep. You're not a secret agent then. Okay. So when we talk for somebody who's brand new and in this class right now, we talk about the database, okay, in real estate. It's your, and you'll hear the term CRM or your contact management system. Your database is your list of relationships. It's every single person that you know put into a contact management system so that you can stay in touch with them in a professional and systematic way throughout the year, throughout every week, every month, every year, okay? So we have a contact management system at Keller Williams. It's called Command. It's called, contact, it's called Contacts inside of Command. And yet there are many other systems as well. It's your list of relationships. It's every single person you know that you want to reach out to or that you are reaching out to, that you have some sort of relationship with. Now, are all relationships the same?
No.
No. So we're going to go through that. We're going to talk about that a little bit. What is the difference between a database and a pipeline? Because I hear people use these terms interchangeably and they are not the same thing. So what's the difference between the two? Does anybody have an idea?
So database, this is Ruben. Database is the list of people, like you said, everybody you know. The pipeline is people that are actually going to do business with you.
Right. So your pipeline is full of people that are either considering buying or selling, or in being an investor, buying or selling real estate with you. They're either a buyer or a seller, and they're in a tool called a pipeline. And so here's what I would say to differentiate between the two. Every single person in your database is probably, sorry, let me do it the other way. Every single person in your pipeline better also be in your database, but every single person in your database is probably not in your pipeline at the same time, okay? Your database is gonna be, you're gonna be adding to it, adding to it, adding to it. There's only a few times that you actually delete someone out of a database. They pass away, or you decide that they are a jerk and you don't want to work with them because you own your own business and you get to decide who you're going to work with. Okay. So you're going to have different relationships, and we're going to dig into that more. So your database is going to grow and grow and grow. And from that database, you're going to have active buyers and sellers that are a part of inside your pipeline, and you're moving them through a pipeline from first initial conversations, like open house conversations that was brought up earlier, all the way through to showing property or listing property, to escrow, to a closing, and then a lifetime relationship beyond. They go back into your database. Does that make sense? So your database and your pipeline in a CRM can be part of a CRM tool. They might be different portions of a tool. In Command, we call the pipeline opportunities, and we call the database contacts. So they're separate, but they also work together. Does that make sense? Anybody confused or have any questions about that? Okay. So did you guys know there's laws of a database? Did you know that?
Yes.
We actually learned that in Ignite. It's part of one of the classes in Ignite. And I love this. There's actually 4 laws to the database. And those laws are: you build it, you feed it, you communicate to it systematically, and you service it. So you build it means you classify, okay? And feeding it means you're adding new people to it all the time. Communicating to it systematically is when we get into the follow-up part. So remember, building it or feeding it is lead gen, right? Lead generation, adding new people. Communicating to it systematically is follow-up. That's where the lead follow-up happens. And then servicing it is follow-up. As you're following up, people are letting you know they want to buy or sell, they move into your pipeline, and then beyond is that relationship that you have for a lifetime. Real estate relationships are a lifetime. Real estate's a lifetime business. I always use this example. I just got my hair done this weekend. And what's the smartest thing that my hairdresser does before I leave her establishment every time? What's the smartest thing she does?
Sets the next appointment.
Thank you. No, I was waiting for you to say, make me look beautiful, but you're right, Yvette. It's set the next appointment. It's the smartest thing that she does. Making me beautiful is the second smartest thing, because that means I show up again. But she sets the next appointment. And so she's booked all the time because she sets her appointments before people leave. Okay. So I already know 8 or 9 weeks from now, I have my next appointment. When we close on a home, we open our calendar and we say to people, okay, I'm setting our appointment for 7 years from now, because I know that on average, that's when you're going to be ready to sell this house again. And so let's book an appointment for 7 years from now. No, we can't do it that way. Our timeframes are a lot longer in real estate, right? Because it's a lifetime business. People don't sell a house like they get a haircut or a dental appointment or your car getting serviced, all those things that you may schedule in intervals. So in order to stay in touch with people, we have to have really good follow-up, right? And so that it doesn't fall through the cracks, would it make sense that we make that systematic? Right? Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Food for thought, ideas, questions around that?
Laura, can you give an example of how to classify your database and how to properly group them?
Thank you for the segue. We planned that ahead of time. All right, the 3 C's. What is a database? The 3 C's of a database: contact, classify, and campaign. Okay, your contact is who. So what is a complete contact? What are you guys' definitions of a complete contact?
I think where I have their full name, I have their phone number, I have an email address, and even have their mailing address.
I like to say there's 5 things: first and last name, because you think about a lot of times in your phone, you might have somebody's first name in your phone, but do you have their last name? So first and last name, phone number, email address, mailing address, and social media contacts. Minimally 5 things that you have, okay? And that's okay if you don't have all 5 when you put them into your contact management system, into your database. It's okay, because as you reach out to them, you're going to be adding and getting more information from them, okay? But minimally 5 things. And then I am in follow-up today. I'm going to be sending you some information that's shared actually from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent 2 book. There's some, well, some of this came from that and some of it came from Ignite. There's levels of a database. I'm going to share one sheet with you that says the 3 levels of a millionaire database. Level 1 is called Essential: name, contact info, past business and past contact record, and at-will communication. So your emails show up, that sort of thing. Level 2 is called Effective, and that means you've obtained permission to have a 2-way relationship with them. You've collected personal information, insights, and preferences. You segment them into groups, and you're purposeful and consistent in your communication. And level 3 is Exceptional, meaning you have an automated system and custom communication built around triggers. So I'll send that to you guys as follow-up. So So that's one of the things that's defined. Actually, that's from Ignite class. Okay, so first of how you classify a database is who. You've got to have your who in there and your complete contact information. Okay. I'm going to come back to Mets versus have not Mets in a second. And then secondly, how you're going to sort and qualify. Okay, so what are some different ways that you guys sort and qualify people in your database? Let's hear some examples.
Coworkers, in the past, my past coworkers, family, close friends. It could be service people such as dentists or doctors. I know that we used to belong to the CrossFit community. Groupings like that. I think of it as
Yeah, networking. Yeah. So groups, yeah, those would be examples of groups. And mine's very simple, like in my, and I'm going to show you another example in a second, but I would do stuff like my neighborhood contacts, my kids' school contacts, because I had in my whole real estate career, my kids were in school, so I got to know a lot of people that way. Networking contacts from different groups that I was in. Like Yvette said, business contacts, vendors, affiliates, people that are, they own a business as well, and you may be able to trade business back and forth with. So there's lots of different ways you can set up groups, and in any contact management system that you're using, you can usually tag groups, okay? We call them tags in command. They might be called something different, but you can usually create tags, and that way you can reach out to people depending on what their tags are. You can also tag people as a buyer or a seller too. Is this a buyer contact? Is this a seller contact? So that when you're reaching out in systematically reaching out with pertinent information, you could be doing buyer information to the buyer group and seller information to the seller group. Sometimes people are both too, right? They may need to sell something to buy something. So that's some examples. Are there any other ways that you guys sort and qualify? Okay, Myrna, were you going to say something, or is that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I qualify them. I volunteer for a lot of nonprofits. So I classify them from high school contacts, college, nonprofits.
Yeah.
Where did I volunteer? And then different friends, how I met them. I met them through certain people. So I kind of group them like that way.
Yeah. And when I mentioned the levels of a millionaire real estate database, that's one of the things they say is past business and past contact record. How do you know that person?
Mhm.
And then you can group them that way as well. Okay, and then campaigning, we're going to talk more about campaigning towards the end, but we're going to spend some more time right now talking about classification. And this is where I was going to draw a super cool fancy thing for you guys with my amazing stylus. And I can't do it, so I'm going to share it. Thank goodness I have this drawing saved. I'm going to share it with you this way. Okay, this is my Brian Buffini method. So if any of you have done any Brian Buffini trainings, you've seen this type of database sorting that I use it. It works for me, and so it's one way to do it. It's not necessarily the only way, but the point in this is it's a bullseye. You're drawing circles, and this is meant to be a target or a bullseye. Now, what's the point when you're drawing a target or a bullseye? What is the point in aiming at a target?
You want to get
Get
us
the center.
Want to get to the center. So the center is the most important. It's the bullseye. It's the most important part of a target. So when you think about sorting the people you know, what these letters represent is how well you know the person, okay? So your center are your A pluses. Those are the people that are your cheerleaders in your business. They're the people who are out there referring you to other people. You've either done multiple deals with you or they've sent you multiple referrals. Hopefully your family members are a part of that group. They're the people that you know. For those people that were in transaction one with me earlier today, I talked about practicing your presentations with some friends or family members that then become your cheerleaders. So the A+ are the people that you are doing multiple sets of business, either repeat business or repeat referrals. And then the A's are maybe somebody you're very close to who you've done one transaction with and you're staying in touch. And we're going to talk about lead follow-up later. B's to me are more of like that neighborhood contact. They would have been all the kids, all the people my kids that I met through my kids' school, or all the people in our neighborhood. My kids went to the neighborhood school, so I knew a lot of neighbors. So it's a little bit farther out. That was my definition of it. C's were my vendors and affiliates, my other business owners. They were realtors that I knew that were farther away that I might have been sharing referrals from. Either they were Southern California or in another state. There were people that I had connections with. And so, for example, say it's a painter that I refer in my business. And my hope is that this painter may know other realtors, but that 2 times a year they're referring me business because I'm feeding their business as well. And so it's developing business to business relationships. I'm going to skip over this for a second. I'm going to go to D. D stands for delete. Why do we have delete?
To clear it out and prune your database.
Yeah, because you own your own business and you have the right to delete someone that you don't want in your database anymore. So again, someone can pass away and they can become a delete. Although if you've stayed in touch with them for many, many years, it's possible that one of their family members would reach out to you to help sell a property. And then for the people that you don't want to work with, you can create a delete. For someone who has actually said to you, hey, I like you, you're amazing, but my sister is a realtor and I'm always going to use my sister. You don't have to keep spending your time, energy, money, and resources on someone who has told you they're not going to work with you. Okay, does that make sense? So this category right here is Q or O. To me, that stands for quick conversion or open house or online lead, open house lead, quick conversion. So you meet someone at an open house and they give you information and they either lie and give you information that doesn't work, they're going to become a delete. You're going to very quickly after that open house know that they weren't being honest and you're going to delete them. Or they give you information and you're going to continue to stay in touch with them and build a relationship with them with the goal that they become a buyer or seller for you. So it's a quick conversion. Same with online leads, whether you're doing Facebook ads or you're paying for other kinds of online leads, you're converting them quickly. The quicker that you get to them, the quicker they're going to either give you crap information and you're going to delete them, or they're going to at least start as a C and work their way up into your the sorting of your database. Okay. Now, one other part with this is if someone is a C now, do they always remain a C? Can people move in a database? Yeah. So let's go this way with it. I might have a seller that I help sell a house that moves to Florida. Well, I might move them to a C in my database because they've moved far away, but they still know people here. So I'm not going to delete them, but I may stay in touch with them in a slightly different way than I did in the past. The A+, the A's and the B's, I'm going to be staying in touch with a lot more. So when we start talking about follow-up campaigns, we're going to talk about how often you're staying in touch with people. My A+, my A's and my B's, I may stay in touch with a lot more than my C's. My C's might be more of a quarterly reach out versus a weekly and monthly reach out. And so, for example, a person who I sell their house, they moved to Florida, I'm still going to stay in touch with them, but I may not stay in touch with them as frequently. So they may move into the database. Someone who starts as a C, like an open house lead, and as I'm communicating and we're communicating more, and all of a sudden I'm actively showing them properties, they're probably moving to an A. And then we sell a property and they may stay in A. If they start referring me, they're going to go to an A+. So people can move back and forth. A database is a list of relationships, and relationships change. It's living and breathing. You Don't just look at it once and never look at it again. In fact, high agents look at their database every year and they move people around. Same with your pipeline, that moves too. Okay, right? You guys know that your pipelines move. You may have an active buyer you're working with now or an active seller who calls you and says, something happened. I got to put this on the back burner for a while. So pipelines can move back and forth as well. Does this help you guys to kind of see it this way?
Sure.
You can use numbers too. I just was taught with letters. Actually, with pipeline sorting, I've seen it as numbers where if you're doing numbers 1 through 10, a 1 or a 2 is somebody that is going to buy or sell in the next month or 2. And a 3 through a 5 or 6 might be next 6 months, and a 6 to a 10 might be 6 months to 2 years out, right? Because we have pipelines that, depending on what's going on with building or just people's lives, they can move back and forth in a pipeline. So with pipelines, I've seen them more be a 1 through a 10, and you guys get to decide a little bit where, how you define that or what number you give people, the same way as you get to decide what letter you give people. Does anybody have any questions so far about that?
Could you actually run through it really quickly again and just tell us A+, they refer me, B, A's, what, could you just quickly run through?
Yeah, sure. And again, this is my definition. You are welcome to come up with a little bit of your own definition as well. A+ for me are people that I have given me multiple referrals, or I've done multiple transactions with them. Yvette, I know you have people like that because we've talked about it. I know you have people you've done multiple pieces of business with, right?
Yes.
So they're your A+. They're your cheerleaders. They are actively supporting your business and telling other people to work with you. And then A's would be more like you've done one transaction with them. And as you teach them how you work, meaning you stay in touch with them with a systematic professional way with your real estate hat on. Remember, we all wear different hats in our lives, right? I have a mom hat, I have a daughter hat, I have a neighbor hat, I have a friend hat. All those different hats that we wear, we all wear different hats. So we're talking about staying in touch with people systematically with your real estate hat on. And what that looks like to me is I might be calling one of my friends to check in and see how everything's going. And at some point in the discussion that we're having, and I'm asking how work is going for them, they're going to in turn ask me how work is going. And all of a sudden we're talking about real estate. And then I'm talking to them with my real estate hat on for a few minutes. Okay. So the A's, as you're talking to them and continuing that lifelong relationship that you have, they can become an A+ because you do more transactions with them or they refer you more business. B's, again, for me, were more the people I knew in my neighborhood. It might've been a farm that I have. I put them all in a B category, and depending on how well I'm staying connected with them through marketing that I'm sending or door knocking or calling, circle prospecting, all those different things that you do with a farm, they may turn into an A, they may turn into an A+. They may tell me that, they have other realtors they know that they're checking on, they may be more of a C. So your farm probably is more of a B, okay? And then C for me were those other professional relationships that I had with other business owners where we could share referrals back and forth, but I know that they know other realtors too. And so I may not be the only realtor they're working with. And they were also people I knew farther away. So realtors I knew farther away that I was sharing referrals with, or people who just didn't live in my area that I'm focusing on the most, like maybe Southern California or a different state. And then D stands for delete, and Q and O stand for quick conversion, online lead, open house lead, those kinds of things. Does that help?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, any other before I move on? Oh, so Kenny, did that help with the sorting?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, a lot more clarity or ways to define that and do that. You can create as many tags. Oh, thank you for typing that all in. I appreciate it. You can have as many tags as you want in your database so that you can cross-reference people and be reaching out to them in ways that mean more to them and that sort of thing. Basic tags start somewhere with A through C, A+ through C. But then, like I said, I added stuff like, I knew this person because we were in the same neighborhood, or I knew this person from my kid's school. There was different tags, just like networking groups. I know this person from CrossFit, you know, all those different ways that you're going to cross-reference people. Myrna had quite a few good ones too. Good example. Any other examples?
Laura, I got a quick question. I think it's wonderful to classify those leads. What if that one lead used to contact you and you get a chance to do some open house, but after a while, it seems it's just cools down a little bit and you don't get a chance to contact with them, or they stop replying you, something like that. So at the very beginning, it's like hot, but later it's cooled a little bit down. How will you?
Does anybody else have an answer to Karen's question? What do you guys do when open house leads or leads like that cool down? What do you do? Rosemary asked a similar question. I have two answers. One is I never stop being in touch with them unless they tell me to stop. I continue to put them on some kind of follow-up campaign, because chances are, even though you're thinking about them every day, they're not necessarily thinking about you every day. And so maybe something has changed in their life where they just don't need a realtor right now. But you want to be the one they think of when they do need a realtor again. So I always stay in touch and put them on some sort of follow-up campaign. That's my first answer. The second answer is I go out and get more leads. Because if your leads have cooled down, then you need to go get more leads. Okay. So Gary Keller always talks about, do you have a lead generation problem or a lead follow-up problem? If you have too many leads and you don't know what to do with them, that's actually a leverage problem. But that's leverage is in the form of a person or a system or a tool. And so lead follow-up becomes then part of your leverage, right? If you don't have enough leads, then you got to go out and get more leads, right? So you have to ask yourself that question. Do I have enough leads? Am I closing enough business to reach my goals? And if I'm not closing enough business, then I don't have enough good, high quality leads, more of those A+ or A leads, right? And so I need to go out and I need to do more lead generation. Now, I'm going to move into that, I think, next. Where am I at in my presentation? Okay, before I go back to the presentation and talk about what we're going to talk about next, is there any other questions? You guys, is this helpful so far?
Very.
Yes.
I love this class. Such good basics, but it's so important. If we don't really work on these foundational things, the rest just doesn't really matter. This is just going to help you systematize stuff so much more. Okay, so let me get back to my presentation. All right, so we talked about contacts, we talked about classifying. We have not really talked about campaigning yet, and we will get there. All right. I think I'm going to share, before I go any further, I want to share a couple of my fancy drawings to make sure that, are you laughing at me?
Just a little bit, Laura, just a little.
My fancy drawings. Let's talk about the real estate life cycle for a second. Okay, for those of you who know Jason Abrams, I learned this from Jason, and I actually think I made it better, and I've never gotten the chance to tell him that I've made it better, but I'll show you where I've made it better. So let's talk about the real estate life cycle for a sec, because this is really important for you in real estate. And again, I would have drawn this out, and so now it's all drawn out for you. But just picture a lifeline like this, a line going across horizontally, and then picture a line vertically here and a dashed line here. This part over here of this whole lifeline is our real estate cycle, real estate relationship cycle. Okay. It starts over here with lead gen and it ends over here with someone buying or selling a home and they're happy and we make some money. Okay. So over here, you start with lead gen. Lead generation is a one-time event. It's generating a lead. The reason why this class is called The Fortune is in the follow-up is because I'll ask you the question, what is the point in generating a lead if you're not going to follow up with it? Okay, so then you break it down. Are you generating enough leads? If not, we're going to talk about creating a program for you where you're generating 3 to 4 types of leads systematically. Okay. And then it's the lead follow-up part of it. Now, the part that I added, which is actually not on this drawing, is lead follow-up and conversion. That's the part that Jason doesn't talk about as conversion. You can follow up and follow up and follow up. And if you're doing that systematically and you're still not getting somewhere, then we have to talk about what your conversion is and work on that. Okay. So the longest part of this real estate cycle is lead follow-up. Lead follow-up can last a couple of days and it can last a few years or a lifetime of you continuing to follow up with people and have a relationship with them. Then you get this dashed line where you're moving in, you're helping someone actively look at homes or actively list a home and sell it. You move into a short escrow time period, which results in a successful closing. So the biggest part of the real estate cycle is lead follow-up. That's where the fortune is. There's no point in generating a lead if you're not going to follow up with it. Okay. And we call those plans, for example, a 36 touch plan. Okay. Now, you see this little squiggly line here in my beautiful drawing? That's the law of emotional proximity. Have you ever heard of that law before?
No.
Has anyone ever heard of it?
I have not. No.
The law of emotional proximity. I'm going to give you a shopping example. Okay, let's say you go to Nordstrom. Let's pretend that we're allowed to go shopping and it's safe and you're going inside a store. And you go to Nordstrom and there's a greeter at the front of the store. And they say, "How may I help you today? Can I point you in the right direction? Is there something that you need?" And what do you typically say?
Nope.
What else, Myrna? What else do you say? Somebody else. What else?
Maybe later.
Yeah,
Well,
right now I'm just looking. Open house. I'm just looking. I'm good. I'll let you know if I need anything, right? And then you get into the store and you're looking for something and you're not quite finding your size or whatever. And then you're looking for someone to help you. Do you go back to the person who greeted you at the front door? Or do you find the closest help you can find?
Yeah.
That's the law of emotional proximity. You're going to look for the person you're closest to help you with something. Okay. So how does that relate to real estate then? All right. So we have cycles in real estate. Would you guys agree? There's cycles. That's what this bell curve is real estate cycle. And you start here, you generate a lead, you're working actively with a buyer or seller, and up here at the top of the bell, you close and you're happy and you have, success. Okay. And then the next day you're back down here again. And unless you've got an investor that's buying immediately the next day, you're not having success the next day. So the emotional proximity happens here. The more you follow up with somebody in that 7-year cycle, because is that still right? You guys, like every 7 years, somebody's going to buy or sell a home. I think that's still pretty close to the national average of every 7 years. So what happens is the more you stay in touch, the more that when someone is ready to buy or sell, they're going to remember you, top of the mind marketing, and they're going to want to work with you. Okay. Here's that creative triangle upside down shortcut that most agents make. They only want to get into relationship with people right here. They don't want to do all the work that can take years to build a lifetime business. They only want to work with someone who's right here. So back to your open house example, what do I do when a lead cools down? Well, that's one way to meet somebody is at an open house with the goal. Number one goal for an open house is to get another listing. Number two goal is to gain a buyer. And the number three goal is to actually sell that house. Okay. When you do an open house, you're being interviewed for the job to become someone's buyer's agent or listing agent. And so it's how you're showing up and how many leads you're trying to get. It's one way to do that business, to add to your database with some other ways. Most people are thinking, well, okay, I'm trying to find somebody who's going to buy or sell right now. And so they're really close to that point where you're going to make some money. In the long haul relationship of real estate, you're working with people for a lot longer, and you still want to show up and be there when they're getting ready to buy or sell. So that's why systematic follow-up plans really work, because you continue to stay in touch with people so that on the day that they're thinking about buying or selling a home, you're the agent that they're thinking of using versus the agent that all of a sudden is closer to them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, law of emotional proximity there. Okay. I think while I'm on a roll here, let's talk. Kenny, should I talk about my stool, my legged stool now? Should I go there? Okay,
Sure, why not?
let's do that. I know some of you guys have seen it. So here's my other, I think this might be my last fancy drawing for you. And then we're going to go back into my presentation. Here it is. Okay. Would have been so cool if I could have drawn with my stylus, but this is what it would have looked like anyway. So we're going to talk about a lead generation plan. Okay. Now, my goal here for you guys is to help you create some systematic lead gen and then some systematic follow-up. And I'm asking you to ask yourself the question, do I have a lead generation problem or a lead follow-up problem, or a little bit of both? Am I generating enough leads to the point where I can't even service them all because I have so many leads? Or am I, do I need to work on my follow-up plans as well? We all need to do that. So when you think about creating a lead generation plan, I like to use this very simple drawing. And this is a stool. It's a four-legged stool, okay? Like a footstool, stepping stool. Now, would you agree that if you had a stool with only two legs, it would be unstable or tippy?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And if it has three legs or four legs, would it be more stable?
Yes.
Yes.
If it has more than four legs, is it a waste? Is it unnecessary?
Yes.
Okay, really right now, all we need for our example for you guys is a 3 to 4 legged stool, okay? Now we're gonna divide the stool. If my markers were working, I'd put a circle around this part and I'd circle this part right here. Your first leg of your stool, absolutely, you don't get to argue with me on this. It's the law is that it's your sphere of influence or your database. Every single person you know that we just got done talking about classifying and tagging, they're having their contact information. This leg is your database, of which your sphere of influence is part of it. Every single from A+ to C and the O's, the quick conversion or online lead are all going to go in here, right? Those are the people you've already met. You've already generated a lead from. Okay. This part right here are your Mets. We talk about that in Ignite. We talk about that in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Now that leaves you with 3 legs for you to come up with 3 sources of lead generation that you're going to do to generate new leads. So if you have a lead generation problem, then chances are you don't have a 4-legged stool. You may only have a 2-legged stool. Look at that, I don't even have open houses on here. You may be reaching out to people that you already know in your database, and you may be adding open houses, okay? This SM stands for social media. Then I have farm, networking. This is Op-City Leads, which is a lead source that you can be a part of. The 1 to 10 over here is we could come up with we can brainstorm it right now. I'm going to stop sharing. I want to look at all of you. Give me 10 different ways that you can generate a lead. Number one, I'll give you is open houses. What's another one?
Door knocking.
Door knocking. What else?
Farming,
Farming, which hopefully door knocking is part of farming. What else?
Social media.
Social media. Is social media that you're buying leads on social media?
No, I think there's a way to reach out to people through social media.
Okay, so you're still meeting new people. You're not using social media to connect with the people you already know, or you're
No,
doing.
no, no.
Okay,
It's like new people. Yeah.
social media to connect with new people. Great. What else?
Well, in social media, is Facebook social media or reaching out with new platforms? Is that social media?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Or is it
Twitter.
buying leads?
Yes, and yes, and yes.
Okay.
Twitter, what you guys, Instagram, Twitter, what's the Chinese one? It's red something.
WeChat.
Yes. There's lots of social media platforms out there of which you're probably using them in a 3 ways. One would be you're staying in touch with people you already know. And then as Myrna mentioned, you're using it to reach out to people you don't know. In a free way. And then the third way was you're actually buying leads through Facebook or other avenues. And so that can be another way. So yes, and yes, and yes. What other ways for lead generation? Give me some more. Give me some old fashioned ones.
Like referral.
Referrals is great. Yes. What else?
Door knocking.
I'm at 24-hour fitness.
Networking,
Mhm.
cold calling, expireds and FSBOs. Okay, we probably just came up with 10. I'm going to go back to my example. So here's what I want to stress to you. We just came up with probably 10. I want you to pick 3 of the 10 that you enjoy doing, or if you were taught how to do them well, you'd be willing to get out of bed every day and do. Here's the thing about real estate. We have to create our job description every day. We don't go to one of those other types of jobs where you clock in and you clock out every day, and there's a list of things for you to do every day. You have to create your own win the day formula, your own list. And you're more likely to be successful that day if you're doing activities that you're willing to get out of bed and do. So in my career, if someone had told me to cold call, I would have probably wanted to do anything else but. It's funny because now as a team leader, I do a lot of cold calling. But in my real estate career, it wasn't much of my focus. Okay. Door knocking is another one that people get really nervous about. Might be an example. Expireds and FSBOs make some people nervous. That's okay. The question you have to ask yourself is, am I nervous because I don't know how to do it and I need to take a class to learn better how to do it? And then I need to, Myrna, we talked about this yesterday in MREA where we talked about action, that I need to actually go out there and do it and make some mistakes and get better and better and better at it. If that's it, do it. If I refuse, I'll never do it because I don't like doing it, then don't make it a part of your plan. I just gave you 10 examples, or you guys gave each other 10 examples of different types of lead gen. I just want you to pick 3. Why 3?
Because you should be able to measure them and see if they're working or not. And if not, pick something else.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. Why not pick more right now, Myrna?
Because then you're all over the place and you're not really focused.
You're becoming a jack of all trades and a master of none. There's only one of you. You only have so many hours in a day. And I want you to deep dive into your skills instead of skimming the surface swimming, whatever. If you're going to pick social media as one of your avenues, then I want you to do it better than anybody else. If you're going to pick farming as one of your legs, I want you to do it better than everyone else. If you're going to pick open houses, I want you to do it better than anyone else. If you're going to pick networking groups, do it better than anybody else. Deep dive, take classes, practice your skills, make mistakes, figure out what mistakes you're making and get better at them. Ask for feedback, practice, 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 deep dive, deep dive, deep dive into those skills. Once you've mastered those skills, you probably won't have to go to anything else. Because if you're really mastering the skill, it's going to work for you. These are tried and true measures that work for people. People who focus on FSBOs, FSBO stands for sale by owner, and expireds, if they're really good at them, they've mastered it, it works for them. Open house, we all know, there's certain agents we ask to teach us how to do open houses because they convert really well, okay? There's people who are super good at social media. People who are super good at farming. I just contacted somebody today to teach a farming class for us, hopefully in November. So we want to learn from those people and we want to do what they're doing, R&D, rip off and duplicate what they're doing and get better and better at our skills. The only time I suggest that you might add another leg is when you're building a team and you now have more people that you can assign a leg to. Okay, but otherwise there's only one of you in a solo business, so this is your stool. You don't need more than 4 legs. In fact, you might even just do 3 to start with. You definitely, this is, like I said, sorry, you can't tell me no on this one. You have to have this leg, and then you pick 2 other legs, 3 at the most, and get really good at the skills.
So Laura, you're suggesting that we start with pick 3 that don't frighten us, right? And the 3 that we really like the most, so that we'll want to get out of bed to do it.
Yeah, that you like the most, that you're willing to get out of bed. If you're frightened because you don't know how to do them, because remember, there's a lot of people in this class that are just learning. If you're, after being taught how to do it well, you're willing to go out there and do it, like door knocking. Everyone talks about when they door knock the first time, they're scared to death. Hard to even get out of the car. And then once you go do it, you get a good rhythm. You get used to people shutting the door in your face. You're like, okay, remember, write this down. Every no is 1 step closer to a yes. We're in the no business, you guys. We're in the no business. Every time you get a no, you're 1 step closer to a yes, because if you're not getting no's, that means you're not even trying. So if you can knock doors, for example, or cold call and have people holler at you and hang up, you just check off, great, I got another no. It means I'm working on my goal. And the more I work on it, the more I practice what I'm saying, the more I show up, the more it's going to work for me. So the only time I say is the fear part of that is just, if you're willing to learn how to do it and make mistakes, then go for it. If you're just not willing to do it, Yvette, like for cold calling, for example, if you're not willing to do it, then why make it a part of your plan when you have other options? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this? Is this helpful so far?
Yes.
Okay, let me go back to my PowerPoint and we'll go to our next parts. Share. Oops. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh, I think I hit the wrong. Okay, let me just make sure I'm here and then, okay, now I'm really stuck. Hold on a sec, you guys, sorry. Let me find it. Where are you? There it is. Okay, I got to go back into slideshow mode from current slide. All right, so what's the, now we just identified some different ways of prospecting, okay? So we talked about this, we're gonna talk about prospecting. Okay.
Oh yeah, that'll be nice.
I'm not sure.
It's warm today.
There we go, thank you. What's the difference between prospecting and marketing? Does anybody have a definition? Can you guys hear me? It got so quiet all of a sudden.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. What's the difference? But Ruben, do you have a difference between prospecting and marketing?
For me, I would think that prospecting is more focused and marketing is more mass. But
Okay.
that's just my thought. It's
That's
more
one
of a mass.
example. That's one definition of it. What else?
I think one is you're reaching out to somebody very directly and the other one is very indirectly.
With me, which is which?
Prospecting is directly and marketing is indirectly. So when I set out my postcards, it's just very indirect. When I'm calling, I am picking the phone, it's very purposeful and it's to a specific person.
Yeah, perfect. Or an open house. I'm at an open house, I'm prospecting there versus marketing. So keep that in mind when you're talking about social media. Are you being direct or is it more indirect? As when you're thinking of that as one of your lead gen sources. For me, the other thing I would add to the prospecting versus marketing definitions is prospecting tends to take more of your time. Marketing tends to take more of your money. Marketing tends to cost money. Whereas if I door knock or if I do an open house, even a lot of the social media things that are free that I do, it's taking more of my time versus if I start sending mailers out or advertising myself on a park bench or a radio show or all those other ways that we can market, it means costing money. So one of the things that we teach at Keller Williams when we're talking about business planning, which by the way, this class goes hand in hand really well with business planning clinic that's coming up and you guys starting to work on your plans for next year. This is the foundation of it that you're going to build on in business planning clinic. What we talked about at Keller Williams is that start with prospecting as a new agent when you're on a limited budget and you're making every penny count. Prospecting takes more of your time and then add more marketing into what you're doing once you close some transactions and you can set aside some money from your closed transactions into your marketing budget. We call that red light, green light with our expenses. Okay. So, or ROI, return on your investment. For every marketing dollar you spend, what type of return on investment are you getting? So prospecting tends to take more of your time. Marketing tends to take more of your money. On page 138 of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, they have a ton of examples of prospecting and marketing, more than the list of 10 that we came up with. And they call prospecting proactive and direct, which is kind of what Yvette was saying, it's direct. And they call marketing proactive and indirect. So it can be a much bigger base of people, like just listed postcards, just sold postcards to a neighborhood, those kinds of things. So those give you some examples of prospecting and marketing. When you're thinking of your lead gen stool, you're really talking about direct prospecting efforts. Okay, so with that said, what is lead generation? What is, again, so we talked about it. What would you define as lead generation? It's really simple. Don't overcomplicate it. What's lead generation?
Money making activities.
That do what? That's not a SMART enough answer.
Open houses
Lead gen, what are you doing an open house for?
to get their phone number and their contact information and their name and what they want.
Yeah, lead
Looking for-
generation is meeting people that you want to do business with. Right? It's generating a lead that I can then do business with as a buyer or seller at some point in a lifetime. So lead generation is a one-time event. Lead follow-up is everything you do on that emotional proximity after you've generated the lead. So as I recommend, focus on 3 sources. Don't be a jack of all trades. Focus on 3 sources. That's your lead gen plan, your 3 to 4-legged stool. And then with marketing, add it when you have the money to add more and make it a smart business plan. Take business planning clinic. I'm also going to teach a shorter version of that in November to our office to help you with some planning for next year. Okay. So make it a smart business plan. In other words, what will be your return on your investment? How are you going to measure your return? How are you going to know that you've given it enough time to see if there's a cycle that you're actually bringing some money back in before you decide it's not working or that you need to up your skills? So you have to think about that. If you guys want to write this down as something to research a little bit, it's called lead and lag measures. Lead and lag measures are measures that people who are in sales use all the time. Your lead measures would be those activities you're doing. So let's just talk about 1 month's time. My lead measure is I'm gonna do 8 open houses in 1 month. That's a lead activity. A lag measure would be the result I'm getting from the open house. So of every open house I do, my goal is to walk away with 5 solid relationships that I've developed that I can then follow up with on a follow-up plan. So that's more of a lag measure. A final lag measure is I actually work with someone all the way to a successful closing. So lead measures are the measures you use at the beginning of an activity for sales, and lag measures are how you identify your return on your investment at the end of an activity. Okay, we talked about the law of emotional proximity. I very briefly mentioned the term top of the mind marketing. Did you guys catch that when I said it? Does it, who knows what top of the mind marketing is? It goes very much hand in hand with emotional proximity.
They're the first person you think of.
Yeah. So I'm the one who comes to the top of the mind of anybody that I've been reaching out to. I want to make sure that I am following up systematically and professionally through the emotional proximity cycle so that on the day they finally are thinking about buying or selling real estate, they think about me. This is a perfect time of year to talk about this, because what happens in the fourth quarter that kind of bunches up that doesn't happen the rest of the year as bunched up? There's some events that happen in the fourth quarter.
Holidays?
Yes, thank you. Holidays. We tend to have at least 3 holidays, if not more, because if you start with Halloween, we got Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, or other religious holidays, and then New Year's that all kind of bunch up together in a shorter period of time. And it's a perfect time to stay in touch with people. In fact, you guys should all be thinking now, what is a way that I'm going to be reaching out to people more specially than I'm already doing during the holidays? And why is that important? What happens during the holidays that would need you to be thinking of top of the mind marketing?
People meet their family and talk to each other.
You got it. Bingo. You got it. People are more likely to be sitting at the family table, having some sort of meal together and talking about life goals or life events. So-and-so is getting ready to retire and move. They're talking about a life event. So-and-so is getting ready to buy their first house. Somebody's had a couple kids, they're thinking about buying a bigger house. And they talk about that stuff, and real estate comes up at the Thanksgiving table or all the other holiday tables. And if you've been reaching out to them during those times, then hopefully you're coming to the top of the mind for them when they're having those conversations. Because guess what I can guarantee you? If you're not reaching out to them, another realtor is. Right? We don't necessarily own everybody. Doesn't mean that there's not other people reaching out to them. Okay, so now we're going to talk more about follow-up campaigns. I keep using the word systematic. We're going to talk about personal versus impersonal. We're going to talk about weekly, monthly, and quarterly. The question you want to ask yourself is, are you a secret agent? In this real estate business, you got it. Like Kenny said, every single person he knows is in his database or his data bank. They may not all be A+, some of them may be C's, but he wants to make sure that every single person knows him with his real estate hat on in a systematic way throughout the year. Okay, here's that real estate life relationship cycle: lead gen, lead follow-up and conversion, and escrow. And remember that law of emotional proximity. Now, This is where we talk a little bit more about lead and lag measures and being entrepreneurial, purposeful versus entrepreneurial. Are you tracking all of your leads? Are you tracking your conversions? I always say it's closings along the way. Yes, there's that big, huge closing at the end that we call payday. But every single, in any sales cycle, there are closings that happen along the way. So number one, we generate a lead. And what's the goal for every lead you generate? What's the next goal with them?
To move them along the funnel.
To get them to an appointment, yeah. Right? It's to get them to an appointment, a buyer appointment or a seller appointment. So to move them along the funnel. Is every single lead that you get going to move to an appointment?
No.
No, you see how the funnel gets smaller? And then once you do an appointment, whether it's a buyer appointment or a seller appointment, what's the next goal?
They agree to work with you.
Yeah, they sign a listing contract, or they just agree to work with you. They sign a buyer contract and they agree to work with you. And now you're working with buyers to help them buy a house, or you're working with seller to help to sell a house. And then you move into an actual contract, a residential purchase agreement, or other types of purchase agreements. Those are the contracts that get to this. So what you have to ask yourself in your business, especially when you're setting goals for the rest of this year, or definitely for next year, how many closings do you want to have by the end of the year? If you want to do 20 closings by the end of the year, then you probably need to have at least 25 to 30 contracts, because some of them are going to fall apart. And for you to get 20, let's just go 25 contracts, you probably need 35 to 40 agreements, because some of them are going to move or fall apart. And to get, what are your conversion rates? To get to 35 agreements, how many appointments do you need to set? Are you 50-50 conversion on appointments? For every other person you meet, you reach an agreement? So do you need 70 appointments? And then from your leads, likely it's more a 4-to-1 conversion. It could be even higher, 5-to-1. Do you need 200 leads? Do you need 400 leads? How many leads do you need to funnel down to get to 20 closings? And then what are your sources for lead gen? Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Purposeful professionals track all of this. They track it, right? can you guys see that? Why did that open? Let me close that. All right, what does your lead gen and lead follow-up plan look like? Okay. Your method or methods of prospecting, focus on 3. We talked about that. How often are you doing it? Okay, so how many METs are in your database, the people you've already met? Remember, if we go back to this lead funnel, of the people already in your database, does anybody know, let's say you have 100 people in your database. Do you know what the science says around, of 100 people, how many people you can expect to do a transaction with? You guys know the science around it?
Are you talking about the Pareto principle?
No, I'm not, no.
So 70 probably,
I'm sorry, say that last part.
10%. So wait a minute. So Laura, I will say this. This is our second year on our team of tracking we track how many contacts we make a week. Everybody does it. We track how many converted to appointments. We track how many then go from appointments to, we get in a contract with them, and then contract to close. So we actually, at the end of every year, are going to know what our exact conversion is. If you don't, then Gary Keller tells you, what that amount should be.
Yeah, so for every 100 people in your database, they typically say that you should get 6 sources of business. When you're following up with them systematically and staying in touch in a professional, systematic way, you should get 6 sources of business. I think it's actually 12. It's 6 direct sources like buyer or seller and 6 referrals. Okay. So if your goal is to do 20 or more deals a year, then is 100 people in a database enough?
Nope.
No. And what is the minimum amount that we recommend in Ignite classes for people we recommend you get to 100, but then what's the next amount we want you to get to? Minimum 200, and then go from there. Minimum in Ignite is 200, and we want you to go from there. Okay. It depends on, so if you're wanting to do 50 deals a year, 100 deals a year, you got to have a much bigger database. You got to have a lot more people you're reaching out to. Okay. And that's where you're going to add marketing into what you're doing for prospecting. And again, not all those relationships are going to be the same. And for those people who are doing millionaire business, they still have an A+ list that they're getting most of their business from. You guys can ask Alan that. I'm sure that he has an A+ list of people that he gets most of his repeat and referral business from. Okay, so we've talked about METs, we've talked about have-not METs. I think the one part that we haven't talked about yet is really what the follow-up plans look like. So I've got something I'm going to share with you. But I would just love to hear people talk a little bit more about what types of follow-up they do. Let's hear a little bit more on this. What are some follow-up things you do?
Calls. The other thing that we do on our team is we do with every one of our clients at least 4 times a year, we do pop buys. And this year, when we did our pop buys, we actually got more referrals going face to face with a pop buy.
What's a pop buy, Yvette, for those people who don't know?
So you find a cookie store that you like, and you have them package up cookies for you, and then you drop off those cookies with people, or Thanksgiving's coming around. We normally do a pie pickup, something like that.
Yeah, it's just showing up at people's houses with a little gift to let them know you were thinking about them. You're actually the gift. You don't have to show up with anything. You can show up, take a selfie, text them and say, hey, I was in your neighborhood and just thought I'd pop by and say hi and hope you're doing well, and take a picture of yourself at their front door. Hope you have to know them pretty well to do that, so it's not creepy, but you're the gift. You're giving the gift of your time, okay, by actually reaching out to people in person. So let's just talk about, you guys, what are the different ways you follow up? Yvette, you mentioned calls, calling people. You mentioned popping by and dropping off a little gift to let them know that you're thinking of them. What are some other ways that you guys reach out to people?
I've been sending hello cards, thinking of you cards, handwritten cards. And then I also look at social media. So what they're going, or what are they doing, what's happening. Some people had lost family, friends, all this the last year. So I've been sending cards as well when people get promoted or whatever's going on in their lives.
Okay. So you're setting a goal, like a lead and lag measure goal, or an intentional goal, Myrna, on how many Facebook comments you make per day, that kind of thing?
I'm more of like
It's
looking,
systematic.
yeah. So I'm like writing about 5 to 10 cards a week to friends and people in my farm. Like if we knock on the door and they're able to talk to us, I just send them a thank you card saying, thank you for giving me your time this morning. It was great get to connect with you. And that's it. Send my business cards in the card and say thank you.
It's another thing that takes your time. A personal handwritten note. First of all, we barely get those anymore in the mail. We get lots of stuff that we immediately recycle, throw away, recycle. We get bills, yippee. We rarely get, people don't write letters anymore because we all type and send emails. So the time it takes to write a handwritten note it stands out, you guys. And actually I saw a statistic once, I think it's less than 1% of mail is a card or a handwritten note anymore. 100 years ago, that's all we got, right? So it really stands out, and you're remembered by that. You might send mailings, which is another thing. You might send mailings every month to your A pluses and your A's and your B's. You might have a mailing that you send. I mean, in the mail. Okay. I still do that. I send mailings once a month to it's 200 people, because I pay for 200 mailings a month. And I know that probably, I don't know, over 50% don't open it, but it's top of the mind. They remember me when they see it, even if they're recycling it. Okay. And in addition to that, handwritten notes is another top of the mind. I send e-reports, which is an email market update or some other report. I call it an e-report. That's a Buffini term. At least once a month, if not twice a month. I'm actually going to move to sending them twice a month. Pop-bys, I have my group in Santa Cruz on a quarterly pop-by, meaning they get a pop-by from me every quarter, like Yvette talked about. I have about 100 people that I cycle through a quarterly, so it's about 30, 30, and 30 a month. And then every quarter they're back in the cycle again. So, and then phone calls. The recommendation is calling people at least quarterly. Now, if they're in your pipeline and you're actively working with them, you're going to be talking to them more frequently. And then Myrna mentioned social media, that you're not just putting a little thumbs up, like, or a heart, that you're actually commenting on social media. You're engaging and interacting, more of a two-way interaction. We know that lots of people don't answer the phone these days. So you can still call, you can follow up with a text. I think text is more apt to get to them than email. Email we all get inundated with. So it has to be part of it. Another way would be adding video. Are you doing video messages? Whether you're putting, video market update on social media platforms and then emailing that same video to the people you know. What are some other ways that you guys can be doing lead follow-up?
For me, Laura, at an open house, I'll follow up right away after hosting the open house. And if I write down any, if they requested additional information, I'll make sure I get that to them, and also disclosure packets.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, Kenny, let's talk about this one for a sec, because it's come up more than once. We've had 2 questions around it from Karen and Rosemary about lead conversion from an open house. Can you share with me what your lead conversion strategy is for open houses? Or share with everyone?
For me, I'm just very persistent and relentless. For me, I always think of perseverance as just stubbornness with the purpose. And if I have their phone number or any information with them, it's always a lead unless they say no, or they tell me to stop calling. And I always try different platforms, because there's so many ways to communicate now. So if I leave a voicemail, the next time I'll leave a text. If not, if I have their email, then I will also try with email to send information. And you kind of want to be a place of resource. So you always just don't want to call just to call. You want to be like, hey, this house just had 8 offers and this is what it's sold for. There's also very similar homes very much like this. And, I can always show you those homes as well.
Laura, can I just add on to it?
Yes, please.
I know what he does, and I know that there's more to it than that. I know that one of the things that Kenny does is he calls them right after the open house, for sure. I know he does.
The same day.
The same day. The other thing that I know that we do in our team is that he will carry a buyer's presentation with him. And so that he has an opportunity, if they're at the end of the day, to say, why don't you hang out, or why don't you come back in 30 minutes and I will do a buyer's presentation.
Yeah.
And we have had it on our open house.
Did you need some?
I
I got her. I muted her.
Thank you. She's next door to me. One of the things, what was I just saying? Damn it.
The buyer presentation at the end.
So we have a buyer's presentation. If we're holding our own open houses, we sometimes have two people, especially if it's an upstairs, downstairs type place. One person continues showing, the other person will take the person off to the side, out back, and do the buyer's presentation, give them a quick overview, because we run into people and they meet that don't know what they're doing, or they've been running around with a Redfin agent or whoever. And then now we've already made them buy into us a little bit. Oh my gosh, they're trying to educate us. Now they're more committed to us.
Right, because they're interviewing people, right? You're getting interviewed to be their agent. So here, I don't want this to turn into an open house class, which it could. And I would recommend that if you're still needing to grow your skills with open houses, that you attend open house classes. A couple of points I will make to add on to what Kenny and Yvette beautifully said already is open houses are a week-long event, okay? If you're doing remember I told you if you're gonna choose open houses as part of one of the legs of your stool, I want you to do them better than anyone else. And I want you to keep in mind that what you can do to have a high level, highly successful open house starts on Monday and goes all the way to the next Monday, okay? And that means that you're trying to get an open house at the beginning of the week, brand new listing. You're doing all your research through the week. You may be circle prospecting before the open house actually happens so that you're inviting neighbors to the open house. And you're doing your research, you're asking questions of the seller and of the listing agent to make sure you knew everything about that house that you can possibly know. The day of the open house, you may be doing some door knocking, dropping off flyers, inviting people. And the day of the open house is not just a 3-hour event. You've got prep ahead of time and prep afterwards. So when Kenny finishes an open house at 4 o'clock, he's spending at least an hour afterwards doing all of his follow-up. He has won that day. Before he goes home to enjoy his family, he has already done some follow-up. And then the next day he's going to do more follow-up. So that's one thing I would say is take a high-level open house class to learn how to do it better and how to convert more of these open house leads. The other recommendation I've had, which you would hear from an open house class, is the 12 days of pain type of follow-up, where you are following up 12 days, boom, 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 so that you know if this is a person is serious or not. Okay, you're not you're not meeting people at an open house to be their friend. You're meeting people because you want to be in business with them. And so one of the strategies I've seen is they call it 12 days of pain, where you're going to stay in touch, stay in touch, stay in touch until one of two things happen. Remember the quick conversion? They're either going to agree to work with you or not work with you. So they're going to tell you, I don't, if you're, Kenny, you just said it. There was a way you said it, but if you're being that committed to your job and that much showing them how much chutzpah that you have, that you want to be their agent and they want to work with that kind of agent, they're going to work with you and they're going to stay in touch with you. Or they're going to say, leave me alone. Don't ever talk to me again. Great. You're no longer getting your time wasted by people who don't want to work with you and who are blowing you off. So you put them on 12 days of pain, you find out who the real people are, and you're going to continue to work with them. And the people who lie to you and don't give you info, you're going to delete. And the people who say, leave me alone, you're going to delete. The rest of them, you're just going to put into a lead gen plan and you're going to stay in touch with them forever, because you're not a secret agent and you're going to stay in touch forever. Okay.
Right.
So again,
and don't take it personal, because the worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
But at least you know that there's somebody else that you can help.
Every no is one step closer to a yes, you guys. We're in the no business. If you're getting a no, it means you're doing your job. So again, that I don't want to turn this into an open house class, but since that is definitely one of the ways that you guys are lead generating, hopefully what Kenny and Yvette and I just touched on will help you with that. Okay. Okay. So let's see. We were talking about different types of lead follow-up plans. The important part is to keep it systematic and professional. Okay. What are you presenting to people? Are you presenting bits of information about the real estate market? It's good to add a little fun and flair in, like, you might do some social media stuff that's fun too. I know I saw an agent out there who was trying to build her business and she loved to cook. And so she was doing all these how-to videos on cooking and marketing herself as a real estate agent. And I think she was missing the mark a little bit. Throw a little fun in there, but you got to throw some real estate stuff in there too, or people are just equating you with your cooking hat on, not your real estate hat on. Does that make sense? In my opinion, that person was staying in her comfort zone of cooking and kind of missing the mark. So I'm just going to give you that as an example. Okay, so when we talk about systematic follow-up, the magic amount that Keller Williams has recommended is 36 times a year as you're building, okay? And I have this sheet for everybody. Here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to, I'm putting Laura Gleason at kw.com in here. Email me in case I miss anybody who's in my participant group here, because I do have some handouts that I will send you. Email me and say, Laura, can you send me the handouts from class today? And I will get them to you. I just don't want to miss anybody. One of the handouts that you're going to get, I'll just show them to you right now. Okay, this comes from, I think this is either, well, let me tell you. Oh, it's Ignite. Okay, here's one of the handouts you're going to get. This is develop your database, engage it with a touch campaign. So if it's a lead, there's two parts here. There's leads and there's contacts. If it's a lead, it's somebody you just met, right? You don't know them very well yet, versus your sphere of influence is someone you've known longer. These are people you have a right to at least have a one-way conversation with. They're recommending 19 to connect. Now, I mentioned 12 days of pain on a follow-up plan for a quick conversion. So that's separate from this. So that would be 4 quarterly phone calls, 12 email reports, email newsletters, 2 promotional items, a pop by, and then some sort of annual event. It adds up to 19. Okay, that's minimally. You can do more, that's minimal. And then 36 to convert. So it was 19 to connect. Remember, this is a lifetime business. Law of emotional proximity, we're trying to connect to people. And then 36 to convert. Contacts, your sphere of influence, are connected by permission or because you know them. They are interactive and value-based. They're recommending 36 touches a year. 4 phone calls quarterly, 26 touches, biweekly email offering some sort of value, market snapshot, other market information. It might even be information about what's going on in the neighborhoods. 2 touches are events or parties or get-togethers, and then promotional items sprinkled in there as well. Okay, it can be a holiday, it can be a calendar that you send out at the holidays for 2022, something like that. Cookies, Yvette mentioned cookies. If you can give promotional items that last longer than a cookie, that's a really good idea because they last longer. So something that they're gonna keep in their drawer, like for example, for me with the pie idea for Thanksgiving, I might also go to the dollar store and buy pie servers that they are then going to keep the pie server around, or you spend some money and get a pie server engraved. Something like that can cost a little bit more money, but you're doing it to people you know better. A+s and A's. Okay, so these are the 2 systematic and professional ways that they're recommending. So you set it up. It's going to take a while to get it set up, but as you set it up, it becomes more systematic and it shows your value. I'm going to tell you guys, because I've been in this business a long time, I can't tell you the amount of times that I have had people say to me, I knew I could depend on you because you always send me stuff. And what I was showing them was that I was dependable and that I had good follow-up because they could depend on getting something from me. And I have had so many times stuff I've sent where they said, yeah, I gave it to my niece or I gave it to my neighbor because I know they're getting ready to buy or sell. I didn't really need it, but I gave it to someone who did. So remember, this stuff is showing how professional you are and showing how you show up. And that goes a long way. It builds and builds and builds over time. I saw this really cool quote on Facebook this weekend. that said something like, you can't lift 1,000 pounds at a time, but you can lift 1 pound 1,000 times. And so what that really meant was little things add up to bigger things. That's systematic. That's the unsexy part of real estate that makes the top agents really good at what they do. Is they have daily activities that they do over and over and over again. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, let me see what these other things I was going to send you. Okay, okay, a couple of other things I'm going to send you that if you email me, you're going to get are this. So the first page of this was the 19 touch and the 36 touch that I just showed you. The next one is the 3 levels of the database. I went over it earlier, where the level 1 is essential, level 2 is effective, and level 3 is exceptional. I'm sending you that. And that also comes from Ignite. And then the next is defining your sphere of influence. Well, who is my sphere of influence? I don't want to be a secret agent. Who do I know? Here, this is giving you some examples, starting with family, then friends, then parents of a friend or a child, people in your community, religious associations, networking groups, contacts you have generated or going about your real estate business. So those are your leads. Anyone you, I didn't do these in the right order. Anyone you have done business with or has done business with you. So these are some examples. It's basically every single person in your phone, every social media connection you have, you should be getting them into your database and staying in touch with them. Do they know you're a real estate agent? So I'm sending you that. And then this next one is the lead generation model. So that funnel that I shared with you in the presentation has gotten a little fancier with the new writings of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book #2 they're coming out with. And it starts with prospecting and marketing and capturing people. Then it defines difference between leads and contacts, and it just kind of goes down into a fancier funnel. Cultivating, appointments, active, under contract, and close. So I will send you those things. Now, I want to wrap up in just a sec. Let's go back to my presentation. Come on, current slide. Why is it doing that? There we go. Okay. So we talked about what are the methods of prospecting. Focus on 3. How often are you doing it? That goes back to the 19 touch and the 36 touch. Be honest with yourself. You don't have to tell me, you have to tell yourself. How often are you really following up with people? Be honest. In open houses, Kenny's following up the day before he even leaves to go home. How many Mets are in your database? How many have not Mets are you adding to your database monthly? And what does your marketing plan and follow-up plan look like? This becomes your weekly and monthly and quarterly job description. What are you doing weekly and monthly to lead generate? That's part of your 411 plan. And what are you doing weekly and monthly and quarterly to lead follow-up? The fortune is in the follow-up. I ask you the question again. What is the point in generating a lead if you're not going to follow up with it? Okay, and I'm going to end with this, and then I'll take any final questions that you have. I just want you to think about this quote. You're not going to master the rest of your life in one day. Just relax, master the day, and then just keep doing that every day. So let's focus on win the day formula. What are you doing today to win the day? And do that again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. Was that helpful for everybody today?
Yes. That's very
Yes,
helpful.
it was very helpful. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Laura.
Any final questions, final questions that are coming up for you? Clarification, any ahas? I'd love to hear a few ahas. That would be really awesome for people to share.
Laura, I got
a very quick one. On your last slide, it said like how often you follow up with the leads. Sometimes I always afraid that I follow up too often instead of to fill. But you keep mentioning like professionally. So did you imply that we should like control it within like a normal frequency, not that often? So if people do not reply, then we should not just tag them anymore.
Yeah, so again, depending on where the lead's coming from, for example, with the open houses that we talked about, if you're following up because you're trying to see if they're really serious about working with you, then I recommend 12 days of follow-up right away, okay? And then from there, you're either going to hear that they want to keep working with you, or that they're not ready right now, or they would like you to leave them alone. And
Right.
so you're either going to move forward and work with them, or they're going to say they're not ready right now. And then you're just going to put them into a normal follow-up plan, which is the 19 or the 36. And then if they say they don't want to work with you, you're going to delete them. Okay, so that's just the open house example. Karen, it really depends on where you're getting the lead from. Does anybody else want to add anything to that?
I would like to add something. The other thing that I'm doing, I read the 7 levels of communication. And one of the things that I'm doing is like I'm setting up coffee, lunch, hikes, whatever people like to do, their hobbies. And once a quarter, so I meet with a financial planner. I meet with different professionals that work with other people. There's in a service, I guess, industry. So I just tend to meet with them once a quarter. And I feel like I had a couple leads, people refinancing and nothing big, but I feel like it's building that network where when you sit with them and talk to them, all we talk is about real estate.
Yeah.
So I think it's just building those cheerleaders, like you said, and basically making sure that you're in contact with them and seeing them and just talking to them. I feel like you build that connection.
Yeah. Myrna, you're in the long business when you do it that way. You're in this for the long haul. You're creating relationships that aren't, some of them might happen overnight, but you're going to continue to build. You're building your professionalism. You said that all you talk about is real estate. You're getting better at those conversations every time you have them. So those types of building relationships are for the long haul. And I think that's amazing. Okay. Thank you for that, sharing that. Anybody else want to share anything around that?
Yeah. Also on the follow-ups, you want to come from a place of care and a place of resource, which will really help you.
Which is the professional part, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, when you do make these calls, you also have to make sure your mindset is right and that you're coming from a place that I feel confident in this call, because they'll also sense that, you're hesitant or you're unsure.
Any other ahas that came up for you today? Did you learn anything new today?
Emotional proximity.
Emotional proximity, awesome. What else?
I like the emotional proximity and I liked your artwork.
Thank you. Thank you. What else came up? Any other final points or questions or clarification?
The only last thing I think of was for your 4 legs, for the stools where the lead gen, a lot of those legs could also be, where you're participating, it can also be free, meaning social media, open houses, lead gens, those are all free.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything. So those are very beneficial as well.
Yeah, and that to me is more prospecting based than marketing. Marketing is where it starts to cost more money. Yeah. Thank you for that. Ruben, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was just saying I liked your example of the emotional proximity, the store, Nordstrom's. I like that example because it really set in that way when you think of it that way. I thought that was pretty good.
I are indeed that, I have to say. I don't remember who I learned that one from, but I did not come up with that one on my own. I aren't ripped off and duplicated. it.
Okay,
Thank you.
it was great.
And if I
That
can
is
say
what-
something,
Yeah.
look, regarding proximity, I think it was one of the events that I attended that they said that proximity is power. So depending on the people you're closer to, that's your power, that's your network. So the more people you surround yourself with,
Yep.
so yeah, so I always I just thought about it right now, that proximity is power. So depending where you are and who you're relating with, and then and they even say like the 5 people you spend the time the most, that's who you become.
Yeah. And thank you for that reminder. Going back to that bullseye, I was in touch with my A+, A's and B's way more than my C's. Okay, I spent more money on them, more time, more of my time and energy and resources on the ones that I was closer to. The C's got less of me. Okay, and some of that was just financially, it was made more sense for me to not spend a bunch of money on people that I didn't have that big of a relationship with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Myrna. Anything else, you guys? Well, I had fun with this class today. I want to thank you. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite classes I teach. I really enjoy it. I think it does some amazing foundation parts for you. It's really going to get you set up, especially if you're going to add business planning clinic to what you're doing. And then I am teaching a class in November that I came up with a fancy title for, that's going to be more about creating plans for next year. So thank you for your time today, you guys. I appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Yes.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day.